Can you hear this one little bird? You're gonna keep on hearing it. So let's talk about conscious and unconscious. So many of us make a mistake, myself included, of calling unconscious subconscious. And Eric Fromm, in his book about Psychoanalysis and Zen Buddhism, talks about the difference between conscious and unconscious. He also mentions these two concepts in his other book, Beyond the Chains of Illusion. Both of these books are brilliant and they're pretty short reads, and you can find them online for free pretty easily. So the difference between conscious and unconscious becomes very clear when Fromm talks about how the unconscious may be possibly formed. So he talks about the three main aspects of unconscious mind, and they're all, according to him, socially conditioned or culturally conditioned. So the number one aspect, he says, is the language. The second aspect is the logic, and the third aspect is the taboo, or what he calls the social character. So I'm going to put a little quote from this book in the description box down below, and you can make your own conclusions about it. But what I gather from the examples that he gives is that the unconscious is whatever we culturally cannot accept. We cannot accept because the community, the society we live in, looks down upon these. And that may be seen as a very simplistic view of the unconscious, but the examples that Fromm gives are very illustrative, in my opinion. One of the examples that we can use in our modern day and age, and this is when he talks about the third aspect, the social character one, is when a customer is in the store and the customer wants to buy a suit, and he cannot afford a certain suit. Fromm says that the seller of the suit seller, will want to sell the customer the suit for the price that the customer can afford, but because in the capitalist world it is not something acceptable, he will repress that desire to sell him the suit cheaper, and he will become irritated and possibly even angry with the customer because he will attribute this negative emotion to the customer not being able to afford the suit. And I think this example is quite brilliant because it goes against the grain, and it goes against that notion that we humans are very highly competitive and greedy. And as you guys know, I'm a huge fan and proponent of the view of human that Fromm and Kropotkin have suggested, that we humans are inherently good and we are generous, and we instead want to help each other and not compete. So this view of the unconscious mind, this little example of this third factor, social character, I think can really help us understand how our unconscious mind may form. Another great example that is given is, if it is acceptable in a social group to murder, somebody who is repulsed by the act of murder may not realize that they are repulsed by the act of murder. So they may develop a psychosomatic symptom of vomiting. This is, again, Fromm's example, not mine. And so we oftentimes do find ourselves experiencing symptoms such as anxiety or depression, and we may not attribute them to our social situation, whereas Fromm suggests that we examine our socioeconomic circumstances. And I think that this is a brilliant suggestion, and I'm going to keep on analyzing the world around me using this suggested lens, because Professor Fromm has been really helpful to me, and I'm really surprised that he's not more popular in the Marxist circles or the communist circles. I think he does go beyond his own suggested humanistic psychoanalysis framework, and he offers a lot of insight into many phenomena. And this may be his limitation because he cannot be an expert in all the areas, but I still do highly recommend you read The Anatomy of Human Destructiveness, including Beyond the Chains of Illusion that I already mentioned, and Psychoanalysis and Zen Buddhism. This is honestly my favorite book of all times, and it's a very short read. So read them and let me know what you think.